Morning. Welcome to Get Real America. I'm Bill Edwards. Brittany Brown has the day off. It is Hump Day, Wednesday, 24th day of May, as we get ready for the Memorial Day weekend, and there's certainly lots to do in Savannah. We'll get to that in just a moment. But at long last, it looks like it's finally going to happen tonight as Ron DeSantis, the fantastic governor of Florida, is throwing his hat into the ring officially, and he's going to do it on Twitter with Elon Musk.
They call it faith because in the face of darkness, you can see that brighter future. A faith that our best days lay ahead of us. But is it worth the fight? Do I have the courage? Is it worth the sacrifice? America has been worth it every single time.
So there it comes. And meanwhile, we're getting ready for a big Memorial Day weekend. In fact, Plant Riverside is hosting the 2023 Savannah Salutes Memorial Day celebration starting day after tomorrow, Friday, through Monday, the 29th. And this patriotic four-day event is going to include special Memorial Day presentations. The featured performers will be the Paris Island Marine Band. That'll be taking place on Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And Eric Culberson Blues Band on Sunday, March the 28th at 1 o'clock also. Holyfield on Sunday at 6 o'clock in the evening. And also Lincoln Love and the Fellowship of Love on Monday at 1 o'clock. A lot of things going on. Plant Riverside has been a real feather in our cap in this community, and they do some great, great things. If you haven't been down there, it is so much fun. Go down there, do valet parking. It's worth the money. And then just take a leisurely stroll through all sorts of great places that they have. And if you can't find something good to eat, then you don't like food, because they have a fantastic, authentic African bar that opens later in the afternoon. But they have out on River Street, they have two food bars set up basically. On one side there's seafood, the other side is barbecue and just regular American cuisine and things. And you can sit there and enjoy the people passing by, the ships coming by, and just enjoy Savannah. There's plenty to do. There are plenty of places to eat inside as well. There's rooftop seating. They have a place called Electric Moon. They get up there, and the view of Savannah is absolutely fantastic from there. So I do highly recommend it. And just one of the reasons that we have millions of people, somewhere in the range of 10 or 20 million people, who come to Savannah every year to see this place. And one of the reasons that most people know about this city not only is the reputation by word of mouth, but by a great organization called Visit Savannah. And the head of that organization is one of my favorite people here, a solid citizen, a pillar of this community, Joe Marinelli, who's talking about the 44th anniversary of Visit Savannah. Joe?
Visit Savannah has been in place for about 44 years now. We market this destination to bring visitors to Savannah. The hospitality and tourism industry has probably been the hardest hit of all industries. We ended up losing about 32 staff personnel. It was important for us to be innovative and creative with how we navigated the next steps to keep the idea of this magnificent city front and center with people. The good news is we've been able to bring back just about everybody. We are very, very much looking forward to all the SCAD students coming back in August. It's a sign and a signal of the resurgence, the optimism that we have.
Just amazing. And the great work that Joe Marinelli and his staff have done has been nothing short of magnificent. We've added a lot of things just recently. We did a story, if you remember, that the Lucas Theater now has the mighty Wurlitzer back in operation after about a half a century, as they have restored that magnificent organ that was originally installed in the Lucas in 1925. Had the privilege of going to the Savannah Philharmonic's performance of Saint-Saëns' Thundering Organ Symphony. The only thing that was disappointing about it was that, as far as I was concerned, the organ wasn't thundering enough. The fourth movement opened with a great fugue, and you can feel the power of that organ as the theater sort of rumbles beneath your feet. but I thought there should have been more. Or it was playing along through the symphony, but we couldn't tell it sometimes, it being blending in with the rest of the orchestra. It didn't stand out as much as I was hoping it was going to. I'd never heard that piece before, but it with as usual, Savannah Symphony, Savannah Philharmonic knocked it out of the park. So. There are all sorts of great things to do and see in Savannah. We were talking about what Plant Riverside is doing. There are a lot of other things that are going on Memorial Day weekend. Feature performance, we said, of the Parris Island Marine Band on Friday. Also, Savannah Ghost Pirates have set up a snapshot booth that will run from Saturday and Sunday, and there'll also be a nightly fountain shows on Martin Luther King Jr. Park at 9 o'clock. Featuring patriotic music and a tribute to the U.S. Armed Forces. Those of you who have served or had family members serve, a salute to my dad, who left a great job as the manager of the Lucas Theater here. He went on to go into the Coast Guard during the Second World War, rose to the rank of lieutenant commander, was executive officer on several cutters, and Dad had a rough war. He was stationed in New Orleans for 11 months while the ship was being overhauled and had to defend Bourbon Street on a nightly basis. And I'll have you know that New Orleans was never attacked while Dad was there. Just to give you an idea that the Coast Guard didn't know what it was doing. And said then he was in charge of getting up the poker games in the captain's cabin on the cruise to India. And then he said he saw the pyramids through a haze of Hague and Hague. Way to go, Dad. Rough war for Dad. But at any point on that cruise to India, they could have run across the German wolf pack, things of that nature, or destroyers or any of the German fleet, and things could have been quite different, and maybe I wouldn't be here. But Dad served honorably. My stepfather, Henry Jenkins, also served honorably in the Coast Guard. My uncles, Fred and Jack, both served in the United States Navy. Mom, in the meantime, was working with Bell Telephone as a telephone operator in the old telephone building now, which is now condos, kind of catty-cornered from the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. So, comes from a military background. I myself served in the Army, in the United States Army Signal Corps, rose to the rank of captain, member now of the Military Officers Association of America, and to my fellow officers and to my fellow soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, airmen, and also the forgotten service, the Merchant Marine, a big salute. We wouldn't have been able to win World War II without the Merchant Marine. They were the ones who were carrying, they had the Liberty, what was called Liberty ships, of which we built 88 here in Savannah. And they took the supplies, a lot of the troops, over to Europe. As the old saying goes, an army runs on its stomach. And had it not been for those Liberty ships bringing in all the food, the ammunition, and everything else, and the logistics that were needed in order to supply our soldiers, we couldn't have won that war. And one of the reasons that we did defeat the Germans wasn't because of their not having determination, but they had a lot of supply chain problems, as did some of the Russian troops, and were starving in many cases. So, a big salute to the Merchant Marines, who never get the credit that they deserve. Meanwhile, probably with Memorial Day weekend coming up, this means that beaches are opening. There's always a big one of our favorite destinations, my wife and I, where we vacation a lot of times and also honeymooned, is Myrtle Beach, about a 4-hour drive up the road. And it is an amazing place. Along with, of course, you want to be going out to the beach. You want to get a lot of swimwear. Well, guess what? Target has your stuff, more or less. As a matter of fact, you would think that somehow corporate America would learn from the Bud Light episode, because Bud Light sales are almost 25%. All the stuff that's been causing Target a lot of grief. Displayed. Well, they've now moved because they have suddenly discovered that maybe conservative America, which is most of us, have decided they don't like it. And there's been a big backlash. So there was a, quote, emergency meeting of Target executives over what to do about this when they had displaying swimsuits with men, women's swimsuits with men in being as the models. Wake up! I can remember the CEO of Delta Airlines a couple of years ago was talking about how Delta really cares, and that they're really inclusive and all of that. So I understand that they even called Boeing and asked if their planes could be made with two left wings. We don't care, corporate America. Do your job, okay? You're supposed to make products that we want and will sell, and you're supposed to be in business to make a profit. You're not supposed to be in business to offend people. And Target's taking a big hit. Target has been targeted. And I'm glad to see that conservative America has finally decided they're going to stand up for a change. Most of the time, we just said we just sort of wash our hands and say, "Oh, okay, maybe Bud Light sales went down for a week or two." Anheuser-Busch is having one heck of a time, and the thing that you worry about, and I hate the most, is that what it does to distributors, and as well as the corporate, the people who make their living delivering this product that have nothing to do with policy at the top level whatsoever. It's just disgusting, just how bad things really are, and that the corporate doesn't seem to care, because Anheuser-Busch distributors, we're here and everywhere else, are saying our sales are way down, not only for Bud Light, but Budweiser beer, their sales are way off, and several of their other products like Modelo and others that they produce, their sales are off as well. Learn your lesson. Stand up for the people who have been supporting you, and not try to make some sort of political statement. Leave that for another time and another place. It has no business in business. Meanwhile, what about illegals? How bad is it with these illegals coming across the border? This is only the tip of the iceberg, in a tragic story and a heart-rending story that Laura Ingraham reported on last night on the Ingraham Angle on the Fox News channel. How bad's it getting? Take a look.
Now, this happened last week in Maryland, not too far from where we're broadcasting.
Jose Hernandez Espinal, who's originally from El Salvador, is accused of raping a woman this week, 6 days after raping a teenage girl. Back on May 10th, Hernandez Espinal approached the teenage victim and her boyfriend at Northwest Branch Stream Valley Park. He's accused of threatening both of them with a large knife before forcing the girl into the woods and then sexually assaulting her. Hernandez Espinal was here in the U.S. illegally.
And then there's the tragic case of Kayla Hamilton. Her heartbroken mother addressed Congress today.
My newly 20-year-old daughter, Kayla Hamilton, was murdered in her own room and left on the floor like trash. Kayla's murderer was apprehended by Border Patrol crossing illegally into the U.S. He was a 16-year-old known gang member affiliated with MS-13. When he was arrested for Kayla's murder, he laughed and smirked.
Joining me now is Tammy Nobles, mother of Kayla Hamilton. Tammy, I mean, my heart breaks for you as a mom, and your story should be heard by everyone who thinks, oh, we just have to keep the border open, people want a better life, etc. If we had stronger border policies, do you think you'd be here talking to me now about this horrible tragedy in your family?
No, I would not.
Your daughter...
I would not be on... sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would not be on this journey. You know, I would not be on this journey that I'm on if it was secured.
What do you want everyone in the country to know tonight about your daughter and about your righteous anger toward our government that is refusing to shut this border down from these fraudulent asylum seekers and other criminals that are actually coming across?
All they had to do was make one phone call. If they would have made one phone call to El Salvador, they would have known that he was a known gang member. Local police found out that he was a known gang member. Why couldn't they make that one call? And it would have saved my daughter's life.
Right now in the United States, there's a huge debate about whether we should be welcoming to more refugees into the United States. And the problem is, you know, it's in many cases, not this case, many cases it's impossible to vet these people. They don't have papers. They say they're from one country, but you can't really tell where they're from because they ditch their papers at the border. Given that, shouldn't the border, until we find out where the people are who came across and got away, shouldn't the border just be shut down? given what happened to your daughter and so many others who've been brutalized?
I believe that they should have not just checked in the United States to see if he had any crimes here. They should have checked, where he came from to see if he had a criminal background. Of course, he didn't have a criminal background here because he hasn't been here,
The problem is, I think the databases in a lot of these countries they're not great, and so it's catch as catch can on some of this stuff, and you don't really get the information. Tell me about your daughter, please.
Kayla was a very happy and easygoing child. She loved life. She loved going to church. She loved being herself, and she taught the world that it was okay to be yourself and not follow everyone else. She was a hard worker. She had 2 jobs. She actually got off the night shift that morning before she, and then after that, she was brutally murdered in her own home when she was asleep from being home from the night shift, and just left on the floor like trash.
Tammy, no one in the United States should have to go through this. No one. I mean, this is disgusting, and it's reprehensible, and I know everyone in our audience cries for you, weeps for you, and prays for you and your family. And I am so sorry this happened to you. I wish I could do something to take away your pain. It's absolutely hideous. And we thank you for telling your story tonight, and we're going to stay on this. Don't you worry.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes. Welcome back to Get Real America. I'm Bill Edwards. Brittany Brown has the day off. She'll be back tomorrow, where we're also going to be talking with Jay Ratliff, iHeart Aviation analyst, talk about what's going on with Memorial Day weekend coming up. It's going to be supposed to be the busiest travel time of the year, next to Thanksgiving. And Newsmax has their latest magazine out, and guess who's on the cover? Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And according to the magazine, this is what he actually looked like. According to computer models that they've done extensive study on the Shroud of Turin, and they say they have holy evidence, say that there is new scientific findings pointing to the authenticity of Jesus' burial shroud, giving new meaning to his life, death, and claimed resurrection. And I highly recommend that you read that article and get a copy of Newsweek's magazine. You figure, if you're God, you can make yourself handsome. Well, they've done. Looks like did a pretty good job. They also had a Coming to Jesus session in Bryan County school system. It seems that there is a teacher in Bryan County schools who was fired because She didn't like some of the books, these communist publications that they have out of all the LGBTQ X0409, symbol for boron, tilde, and whatever else they want to add these days, periodic table. So she spoke out about that. They didn't like it, and violating her First Amendment rights, she was fired. Lindsay Barr lost her job back in September of last year. She was since been reinstated. There is a happy ending to this story. She has reached a settlement with the Bryan County school systems, and where she said no teacher should ever be fired for expressing genuine concerns of what's happening in her children's school. She told that to Todd Pyro of Fox and Friends First just a couple of weeks ago. Had a chance to speak with Lindsay this week exclusively, and here's what she had to say on her firing and what's next for her. What happened here? I noticed that once things started rolling, I don't know what's happened to public education in this country, but I'm not sure it can be saved.
I agree. I was a longtime teacher here in Richmond Hill, and I decided to step out of the classroom full time and take a substitute role in my boys' school. And I just noticed that there was a slow decline in what we were teaching our children, the books we were reading, the conversations that were being had. And I went to the principal with my concerns, and just a few days later, she fired me for my religious bias.
What was the book or books?
One of the books that I objected to is called All Are Welcome, and it just depicted same-sex couples parenting and raising children together. And I just was a little bit uncomfortable not knowing what the direction of the conversations were going to be. They also read a book called The Watsons Go to Birmingham in my son's 5th grade class, which had the N-word, cursing, sexual innuendos. These are all things that I noticed as a substitute teacher. They had some transgendered books, When Langston Dances. I just noticed there was a really subtle push to the agenda through the literature they're giving our children.
What grade level are we talking about here?
So the school has pre-K through 5th grade, and the All Are Welcome book was being read to every student in the school, so 4 years old to 10 years old.
And why is this book in the school, and what has it got to do with education?
Right, that was kind of my conversation with the principal. I don't really understand why this is the book that we're using to teach kindness, when I can think of many books with no political agenda at play that teach the same theme. Let's leave that kind of indoctrination or the worldview done by the parents, not by the school.
Well, it seems to me that the title is a betrayal, because if all are welcome, then it sounds to me like you're not.
Right. Everyone who agrees with their agenda, they're welcome.
There's one, yes.
But anyone who opposes it, no, you are not welcome. Mm-hmm. And you will be retaliated against. That's the message that was spoken for me. Mm-hmm.
So what happened? So you objected, and then you tried to get back on your website or something to see what your assignments were.
I did. And when I tried to log in, I was locked out. And so I reached out to the school district to find out if I was being fired or if there was like a glitch in the program, and I didn't hear back for a few days. And then when I was finally contacted, it was to come in for a face-to-face meeting. And the tone of the email let me know that it probably wasn't going to be good. And sure enough, when I arrived, they fired me on the spot, noting my religious bias as their reasoning for terminating my job. And yes, I have friends who were talking about this, and they got me hooked up with ADF, who helped me send a letter and ask for my job back and point out that it was wrong to fire me. You can't fire someone for their free speech. And they kind of ignored the letter, and so it just turned into us going further with a lawsuit, filing suit against them, and we ultimately have settled. And the school has issued a public apology and reinstated me, and they had to pay damages and attorney's fees.
You gonna make it work?
I'm still keeping the option available for now, praying through what we're going to do next.
Well, in a private school or private schools, maybe an option of some sort.
Absolutely, private
okay.
school, homeschool. I love that I have that option, but it was important to me that my record was clean, so that I could seek employment elsewhere.
Because you weren't a stranger to public education, were you?
No, veteran teacher. I taught public school for longer than a decade. Yes, no stranger in this district. So yeah.
And you and the principal weren't strangers either, were you?
No, we grew up together. We graduated high school together. We taught together. She ultimately became my boss before I decided to step out of the classroom. We had a great relationship.
Well, what is religious bias? Does that mean anybody that's a Christian? Anybody that's a Jew?
Well,
what does religious bias mean?
Yeah, I didn't really ask. I think because when I spoke to her, I wasn't asking for her to teach religion. I was simply stating that my religion is what has shaped my worldview and how my husband and I choose to parent our children. And we find that this liberal lean is, not what we want our children to be taught at school. So we were simply asking, due to our religion, can we please ask that our students are exempt from this? And of course she said yes, and their teacher said yes, but then I was fired for the quote religious bias. So I didn't ask, what about these other religions? I just simply listened to what they were saying and accusing me of, and I very kindly thanked them for their time and left.
Mm-hmm. What I don't know what the hell these books are for anyway. I don't know what they're doing. If I were to give this book to my grandson, or I could be arrested for passing out porn or something like that now, or let them buy it at Barnes & Noble if they want to, but why isn't it in our school libraries?
Right. Those are some of the same questions that I have. What I've learned since, walking through all of this, trying to figure it out, as a veteran educator, the state and the government have put these standards called SEL standards, so they're social emotional learning standards, and that's how they're sneaking it in. It's under their whole guise of love and inclusion and acceptance, and so they're telling us without really telling us what they're doing. So it really took me digging in and being present in my children's school to find out what was actually happening. And the first time I objected to it, of course they retaliated.
Well, it doesn't sound like the love and acceptance in your case.
Right. Only love and accept those who agree with what they're trying to push.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what have you noticed? Because I noticed that kids today don't know. A few years ago, 80% of the kids who were graduating from New York City high schools couldn't figure out what 2/3 of 9 was.
Right.
So what are they teaching now? You're supposed to be teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
Pretty much.
And what I've learned is that in my time in the classroom, where we used to be strictly focused on the subjects, arithmetic, reading, language, writing, it's now everything is just coded in this agenda. If it isn't the SEL or, the LGBTQ plus agenda, then it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've taken so much time away from the subjects that are really important to talk about all of these social issues that are not helping our students be, prepared for real life in the workforce.
Well, the proof's in the pudding.
Right.
We spend twice as much as any other country, or maybe every other country combined. We're 35th in just about every list when we go up against other schools. These kids are going to graduate, and they're going to be going out into the real world that doesn't care whether or not you're an LGBTQX04 tilde slash sign symbol for boron or whatever else you are.
That's right. It's going to be really important if we can't read and if we can't write.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost the art of linguistics and debate. Our students can't debate. You can't respect that someone has a difference of opinion or a difference of religion. And that's something that I think is lost on all of this agenda, that our students have lost the ability to really voice their concerns in a safe place or their opinion in a safe place. And good old-fashioned debate. Mm-hmm. That's something we did just 15 years ago.
Yeah. What in the heck's happened to Richmond Hill? Lisa Freeman, Gold Star mom here, went from the penthouse to the outhouse. So she started questioning things that this school board was doing that's managed to pay itself pretty damn well.
Yeah. I find that in my experience, if you speak out, they're going to make sure to silence you in some way or not. It may not be public, it may be subtle, or maybe it is public. Maybe they'll use you as an example at the spring fling and humiliate you and try to ruin your reputation. It's a subtle shift to ruin the people who speak up. for the fundamental rights of Americans. Lisa and I share in that. We have every right to speak up about things that we oppose. But we have found that when you do that, it comes with great cost.
What's the story on this superintendent who I understand is the highest paid superintendent in the country for a school board this size?
I wish I knew, Bill. I really wish that I could understand how that happened. There's a word, totalitarian. I think that that's likely what's at play here, but of course I have no proof of that.
Well, you have you've had some real winners here, because there was one lady, I remember about 20 years ago, and I was doing a story on the radio about it, who wouldn't let the Richmond Hill High School band go to Washington for the 100th anniversary of the national anthem being, approved by Congress or whatever it was. It was a big deal, and they wouldn't let them. They wouldn't let them get on the bus and go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
what is happening?
I have no idea. I'm glad kids know their pronouns. Now I'd like them to get verb and subject agreement.
Right. That'd be really important.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? How do we fight this? You've settled, and fortunately you've gotten a well-deserved a nice chunk of change out of this.
Thank you.
But at the same time, where do we go from here? I'm not sure that public education can be saved.
I agree. I feel like at this point we really need to be praying that the Lord will give us wisdom in this and how to steward our children well. The Bible speaks to how we're supposed to raise our children. They are gifts from Him. So if you're not a believer, I think that it's, you better wake up and figure out how you're going to school your children without this political agenda. If you are a Christian, I think that you should really be looking at your options. Homeschooling, private schooling, Christian schooling, all of these are things that can prevent us from giving our children over to the government, to this liberal agenda and worldview indoctrination.
And what about things like books like Huckleberry Finn, and are they in the library?
I haven't actually looked for specific books, but what I do know is that there's a lot of rewriting history. Those old classics have been rewritten with a liberal lean, and some of them have been called, intolerant or racist in nature just because they're old classics. So, no, that is why I think that it is really important that we keep with school choice, and that one of the first questions parents ask when they visit their new school or look at their school options are, can I see your literature? Can I see what the books our children will be reading together or independently look like? And look for some of those old classics.
One of the things that got me, Lindsay, was a few years ago, Jeff Foxworthy had a great show called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And they asked a guy who had just won $150,000. He was going to get he was going to go to like $250,000 if he could answer this American history question. And they asked him, who said, give me liberty or give me, this guy's in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, said, who said, give me liberty or give me death? And he didn't know. He dropped out of school. I mean, he had $150,000, but he could have had $250,000 if he'd known Patrick Henry,
Wow.
which I learned in the 5th grade social studies.
Right. I've learned just in a few months of being home with my children, homeschooling them, that the history that we have, that we've learned, is totally different than even what I learned. The important documents, those quotes, things about really great presidents, our founding fathers, our children don't know. Mm-hmm. They really have no idea. So it's really sad.
Have you been to school board meetings lately?
I have. I actually went. Our school board, or the Richmond Hill Bryan County Republicans, hosted all the school board candidates a few months ago, and we went. It was like a private meeting where we could hear all the candidates and where they stood, and they answered questions that the public had submitted, and the meeting was great. But oddly enough, no one lost their position. It was the same school board who had been there, and I was just really surprised to see that was how it turned out.
What do you recommend from here? I mean, what should parents do? What should people do? Because these books don't have any business being in our schools, and you're called a book banner. They try to compare you with the Nazis.
That's right. That's what I've been well known as and labeled here in my community that I've grown up in and loved and lived in for many years, 30 years. And it's been really difficult. But my best advice to people, especially if they don't want to just hand their kids over and join into this agenda, is to get involved. If you're not involved, if you're trusting that the school system, your school is so sweet and so great. I live to tell you that my school and school district were so sweet and so great when I was growing up in it, and it looks nothing like it did then. It's completely changed.
Yeah.
Get in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm so old. I was going to school when God was expelled. So, but you find out who your friends are with or something like this, don't you?
You definitely do.
Yeah.
And there aren't many, because there aren't very many who want to be on the outside in the discomfort. They don't want to, they fear retaliation. You know, they've seen what my family has walked through. It's been a very difficult 10 months in a lot of different ways. They don't want that.
But if all those people who are so afraid would actually stand up and grow a backbone,
That's right.
We could take things back.
Yeah, we could make a difference.
Yeah.
And I continue to tell people that Winston Churchill has a quote that says, if you have enemies in your life, good, it means you stood for something. If we stand for nothing, then what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
We're just existing. We're just going with the flow. We're handing our liberty, our children, all of our things away like it doesn't matter. And I just think that's a really unfortunate way to live.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any parting words you'd like to pass on?
Thank you for your time. Get involved. Pray for your kids. Pray for your schools. Pray for our leaders.
Lindsay Barr, there's a happy ending to this story to a degree, although she's found out who her friends really are. But the school district has reinstated her, and they're paying her $181,000 plus attorney's fees and settling this, and has apologized to her for firing her and taking away her First Amendment rights. But she says she's probably not going to go back into the public schools, but she's still leaving that on the table. Also fighting wokeness is our good buddy Tyler Merritt, owner and CEO of Nine Line Apparel. They're fighting for the good cause. We'll talk about that next as we continue to get real. Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934. With personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
And Tyler, this is what the hell's happened to our country?
That's a very open-ended question. I don't know how much time we have for that. I can attest to certain manufacturing capacities that we've lost over the years, the last several decades. I could talk about an extreme reliance and dependence on a country that is governed very differently than us. You know, it's the same debate of capitalism versus communism, and I tell you that people living here who complain about living here need to go check out what it's like to live in Xinjiang, China, as a Muslim Chinese citizen.
A dose of perspective would help, wouldn't it?
Sure.
You were on with Fox and Friends on Sunday morning with Pete Hegseth talking about I didn't know you could do DNA on cloth, but apparently you've been doing some research to make sure that your apparel is 100% USA, made in the USA.
Absolutely. Products are sent out and tested by our friends at Ortane. Random samplings under video surveillance and photos to show chain of custody. Hey, I entered my building from a distribution center, say Sanmar SNS, which are distributors of blank products. Very large organizations worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Those are the people that I buy my products from and then relabel for myself and for people that are my customers. It could be school groups, church groups. We do private labeling for other organizations. And so we wanted to know that at a bare minimum, everything was coming from ethical sourcing. Right? We try to shoot for USA made anywhere we can, and where there's price points and demands that can be met. But we do have things that are produced in South America. We do have things that are produced in Asia, but we want to make sure that all of those facilities are paying a living wage, right? And what's happening in Xinjiang, the reason that all of those products are deemed as banned products is because the human rights organizations and our congressional officials have done the research and have decided, us as a nation, voted, in Congress and in the Senate to almost unanimously pass this Uyghur Protection Act. And it says very clearly, as of June of last year, that was the last time you could be producing and importing anything that derives from Xinjiang. That's cotton, that's tomatoes, that's manufacturing of any product lines. But the things that you can prove, right, in the DNA evidence, I don't think that they anticipated people to do the testing. So I'm, from what I know, I'm the only one of my kind, in this industry that is doing the embellishments here for other people that has spent the money to have these things tested. They're tens of thousands of dollars per test. They're extremely accurate. They are, according to Oratain, which is the testing facility, they are admissible in a court of law. I passed all of these test results to the government. I've given them to all the appropriate authorities. I've given them to the manufacturer, Next Level Apparel, and asked them for the last several months, what is going on? What is your plan? And more importantly, this zero tolerance policy that you tout all over the internet, and what was put on Fox and Friends yesterday says very clearly that we have no tolerance, but in the last sentence it says we may terminate the relationship with the supplier. May. So I don't know how you could be more contradictory. If you have a zero tolerance policy and part of your policy is that you may decide to terminate, which would mean you may decide to keep using them as a supplier, that's concerning to me. So my question has been, if YS Garments is the importer of record, right? That's what comes in on the carton label. That's when it comes into this country, it says who's the manufacturer. It's YS Garments. And you Google search now, YS Garments. It's doing business as Next Level Apparel, which would seem that the LLC in Central America where these products are being produced is owned in part or in majority by Next Level Apparel. So I feel like that's a conflict of interest when you have a zero tolerance policy in the first, or I guess the next line in the manufacturing is you. So I don't know what the line is after that. I've asked. I don't really get clear answers. I don't know who to blame is, beyond Next Level and YS Garments. But I think the American public need to know that I've done a few tests, and of those tests, the first test was of many different brands. 4 of my major brands. It was Hanes, it was District Thread, it was Bella Canvas, and Next Level. And the only one that failed was Next Level, so the retest, that next one, was of Next Level, a different colored shirt from a different batch and a different lot. And it came back again as consistent with Xinjiang cotton, essentially failing my ethical standards. Now, whether or not it's illegal versus unethical, that is for the legal scholars. Just from my internet research, it seems at the very least unethical.
What gave you a suspicion that maybe something was wrong with the supply?
Well, you hear about the industry being tainted with cheap Chinese labor, right? If you're looking for promotional products and you want something at $1 price point, there's nowhere here in the United States you could make that, right? We pay living wages in the U.S. There's no way you're getting products that cheap. It's not possible. And the material cost itself. So yeah, that means it's somehow cutting corners. It's somehow able to undercut the market. And it made me do a little bit of research. It made me look into different types of ways to test my suppliers. And I decided to take a stand. Made in Nicaragua. Well, it's quite concerning that the test results of something made in Nicaragua says the cotton itself, the fibers, have a consistency very similar, if not identical, to Xinjiang, right? And this is kind of where you get into the forensic testing and isotopic testing and what it measures, but it's very similar to that of a fingerprint. When you grow something in a certain area, it's got characteristics, the measurement of light between sulfur and carbon and oxygen, without going into the specifics, it's very accurate, it's admissible in a court of law, and If it were not something that, say, Next Level truly believed in, I still have a hard time understanding why, after I showed them test results, they went and hired Oratane and told everyone in the world that they're a strategic partner with Oratane, which is a different concerning conversation of how an independent testing facility can be a strategic partner with someone who's suspected of using Xinjiang cotton. And if you're the only authorized testing facility and you have a paid partnership with someone who you're testing, I feel like there's a conflict of interest. But that's a different story for a different day of how these things are happening, because I'm pretty confident that Oratane has other bigger retailers that everyone might recognize as major brands, and what they're utilizing is trying to figure out how can they use Xinjiang cotton and send to countries where it's not illegal, not your for-profit public companies and your for-profit private companies. I can move fast and make a profit without utilizing forced labor. And for whatever reason, some of these larger private equity and publicly traded companies feel that the bottom dollar is the only thing that matters.
You think you might have started a trend here of other companies that want to follow along?
I hope I started a trend of CEOs putting their foot down and saying, at a very minimal standard, I will only buy from people who don't utilize forced labor, who don't have slaves in their supply chain. I think that's a very minimum standard. If we can get Congress and Senate to vote almost unanimously on the same subject for the CCP to continue to conscript and enslave an entire people just because they were born Muslim, right? There's no difference between that and what occurred in the 1940s in Germany, right? And we can't just be Switzerland. We can't just receive a train full of gold teeth and say, I have no idea where this came from. Who would have known they ripped these teeth out of people's mouths, and we're just going to melt it down. Right and wrong, and then there's good and evil. And owning humans is evil. Participating and profiting in any aspect of the supply chain is, the manufacturer, right? I feel that I gave enough time and put enough energy and money into where I am now, and I'm going to encourage other people in this industry. If you buy things for your church group, if you buy things for your schools, if you buy things, and you don't seem to really care if they come from slave cotton, then keep doing what you're doing. But if you're concerned with your schools and your churches and your other organizations that you're buying these promotional products from, these blanks that you're embellishing your school spirit on, then I would encourage you to look at companies that will stand behind ethical sourcing. That's why I partnered more and more with Hanes and with Bella Canvas. Their reaction to this has been extremely supportive, and I hope that everyone in this industry condemns any aspects of using forced labor. And if it happened by accident, and if it's a one-time occurrence, somehow was contaminated in your supply chain, I would hope that you would oust anyone in your supply chain that is utilizing slave cotton, so that everyone knows not to use that supplier. And that's what I'm encouraging people to do now, is to vote with your dollar. And if you have any concerns about who you're currently utilizing, take the time and the effort to go and test things. Otherwise, you're just complicit. Otherwise, we're just Switzerland, and you can't be neutral in this issue.
Once you get that first olive out of the bottle, sometimes, Tyler, the rest of them start coming a little easier.
Hope so.
Okay. Thank you, pal. God bless.
Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a ride. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes. Heading in the home stretch on this hump day, Brittany Brown back tomorrow as we head into the into the Memorial Day weekend. A little bit of a senior moment there. And also, to believe in science, Cochrane has just come out with their study. This is the gold standard, the platinum standard of scientific and medical studies. Said masks were worthless. Worthless. No matter what mask you got, whether you got the N35 X04 mask or wherever it was. They were worthless during the pandemic. In fact, in some cases, they made it a lot worse. Thank you very much. And people are still going by the mask. Are you a science denier? Meanwhile, problems on our border. PragerU explains to us why bringing in illegal aliens ain't the best idea we ever had.
This is a death sentence to make this journey.
They're overrun. It is not sustainable.
What we need is enforcement of laws and common sense policy.
Since 2020, there have been over 4.5 million migrant encounters at the southern border. This is larger than the population of Los Angeles, California. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas claims our border is secure.
The border is closed, the border is secure.
But this couldn't be further from the truth. People who defend our open border claim borders are racist. They claim that open borders are compassionate. But is this really true? We couldn't take their word for it, so we traveled to the southern border to see for ourselves. Guys, we're in Eagle Pass right now where we're experiencing firsthand the humanitarian crisis that is going on our southern border.
What's happening on our border is absolutely inexcusable. I'm talking about lawlessness, poverty, murder, the whole 9 yards.
We've got a lot of folks that arrive who have no way, no system, no friends, no parents, no family to take care of them. They arrive traumatized and they end up in the street. And how is that humane?
If you could see that shipping container right there, that's where they keep the deceased. That one right there next to the building. If they have their ID documents on them, and we can notify their consulate, so at least let their family know. But the downside of that is the families don't have money to transport their deceased, their loved one, back home. So what winds up happening is we have to, a lot of times, inter them here locally in our local county cemetery. And unfortunately, they just get a pauper's grave.
The coyotes, they don't care at all. They'll wait until after they've already made it to Houston, or after they've made it to where they're going, or after they've been caught by law enforcement. Then they'll say, hey, we left this person behind at this location, and he was either already dead or he was almost dead. And that'll be days later. People are just getting left behind to die all the time, every day. As if nobody knows about it, then you can't do anything about it, right?
And last year,
We had 17 people die in the desert because of the illegal aliens crossing. I put 15 of those in the body bag myself. Wow. What's hard about our job is when you start dealing with women and children that are being trafficked across the border, being smuggled across the border. That's what's hard about our job, is seeing that daily. They're humans too. They're no different than me and you. They're coming to the United States because they want to come for economic reasons and work.
Right now we're at the Kinney County Sheriff Department. We're right next to some private land where they say they're looking for a mother and her child. They're looking for after a bailout. When these migrants are caught, they bail out of the car, they hop the fence on a private property. While they're looking for this mother and her suspected child, they're also looking for somebody who's suspected to be armed and dangerous, has affiliations with the cartel. This is an everyday occurrence for them. This is something that happens all the time. And it's pretty wild that you have these migrants, these families, these mothers and children who are really in the same bunch as these armed and dangerous criminals. We just got finished up with the Kinney County Sheriff Department. We were out there for a couple hours and they were still unable to find this mom and her suspected child. The deputy sheriff was talking about how they routinely find bodies in this stretch of the border because the heat is so high. A lot of times they don't have water, they don't have food. It's wild to think that this mother and her child could be dead any second now if CBP, if these sheriff officers don't find them.
They would start discarding stuff that they had because they couldn't take so much stuff with them. And you'd find a lot of you'd find a lot of condoms alongside the river. And I would interview the women or ask them, why do you have birth control? Why do you have condoms with you? And then their response is, well, if we're going to be sexually assaulted, at least we have protection. We can ask the man, at least, wear a condom. To either prevent a pregnancy or a sexually transmitted disease. A lot of women, they're traveling with their children, on their own. They'll be looking for some type of safety, so they'll look to the men in the group, say, hey, well, if I stay with you, will you take care of me? And they don't have anything to give them, so they offer themselves.
Basically, they take women and young girls and tie them to the tree and rape them right there. Down in the Darien Gap, they're providing women with what they call rape kits. In the event they get raped, it'll prevent them from getting pregnant or prevent them from getting an STD. And there's various spots from the Darien Gap up through Central America into Mexico where they can replenish these supplies.
To think that somebody is bringing their child through all of this, as an average everyday American, we can't even comprehend the types of things that 4 or 5-year-old child was exposed to via the cartel or other nations' border crossings getting from Venezuela to here. Because from a humanitarian standpoint, this is a death sentence to make this journey. So if that is the argument, right, we should be shutting the border down immediately.
We're putting these people's lives in danger. Our government is.
The liberals need to understand that these tragedies are a direct result of them encouraging people to come uncontrolled and illegally to the United States. They would not suffer if they came in a controlled manner. There would not be the rape of children. There would not be the exploitation of women. There would not be the separation of families. That never happens when people come to the United States legally. They would not have suffered if they had come legally, but that would have taken time. People just want to get here quickly.
A country without borders isn't a country at all. For the sake of Americans and migrants alike, it's time we finally do the real compassionate thing and secure our southern border for good. You can contribute to this cause by completing our survey today.
So this is what the Democrats call compassion, okay? This is, and yet they had the unmitigated gall to criticize Donald Trump for putting people in cages, which are actually pictures from the Obama administration, but that's what our lying media does now, and the Democrats, but I repeat myself. Meanwhile, as we wrap it up today, wishing you a happy Memorial Day. Brittany will be back tomorrow, and because of public schools, people are not quite as independent as they used to be, as we leave you with Stranded on an Escalator.
Whoa, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's not enough left to do, is there?
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.